Salutations, respected viewers. I am George from Ireland. Here I am in London, the United Kingdom. So I'm not far from Paddington Station, in the area which you might call Notting Hill. Anyhow, behind me is the house where Sardar Vallabhai Patel lived for some years, in the earlier part of the 20th century, just before the First World War. So he's born in Gujarat, India, in 1875, and Patel is a typical name from that part of India. And his father had been in the Indian Army, as in serving the British Raj, and knew some men who'd fought in the Indian Mutiny, or as most Indians prefer to call it, the First War of National Liberation. And so he grew up hearing these soldiers' stories of that, and became sympathetic towards the cause of Indian independence. But remember, when Patel was a child in the 1880s, Indian independence simply wasn't talked about. Few people thought it possible or even desirable. It was only 1885 when the Indian National Congress was founded with the blessing of the British Raj to perform a critical analysis role of what the British authorities were doing in the subcontinent and provide suggestions to the Raj about how to ameliorate the lot of the people of India and to represent Indian public opinion. So it's very much cooperative with the Raj at that time and not oppositional. Anyway, Patel, though he didn't grow up in privileged circumstances, was someone with a razor-sharp intellect and a voracious reader. He became fluent in several languages, and he simply devoured newsprint. And this is when Indian newspapers were really taking off. Telegraphs were all over the continent, spreading news from one place to another. The railways had been completed, and newspapers were printed and going around, but literacy was still very low. At this stage, was not even 20% of the population. But he used to read several newspapers a day from different regions of the country. Anyhow, he came here to London, and he had very little money, but he managed to read for the bar. So he passed the bar exams, he was called to the bar, he qualified as a barrister, and he used to walk from here to the Temple every day. Temple is the area of London where barristers study, as in the Inner Temple, the Middle Temple, Lincoln's Inn, and Gray's Inn. These are the four inns of courts, and all barristers must join those. So having to attend his lectures, sit his exams, eat a specified number of dinners in his inn of court to qualify the sort of residency requirement. They didn't actually reside there, not since the Middle Ages, but they had to eat dinners in lieu of residence and be a pupil, as be an assistant to someone who's an established barrister. And having done that successfully for a year, that was that, fully qualified, could return to India and practice at the Bar of India, which is what he probably did. And he threw himself into the activities of the Congress Party. And by this stage, it was the First World War, and things were becoming a little bit more radical. Congress was more audacious, demanding significant reforms which London was very loath to grant, didn't want to say no, because they wished to solicit the maximum goodwill from Congress, encouraging Indians to enlist in the Indian Army, in the Royal Indian Navy, to throw themselves into the war effort against the Central Powers. Didn't want to upset Congress. On the other hand, they didn't want to make promises that they had no intention of fulfilling, and so wanted to make slow progress towards Indian independence. Ideally, not really independence, something like Dominion status, like Canada or Australia, being a fully cooperative part of the British Empire. So if Indian independence was to come at all, at that time, it was thought to be a century away, perhaps more. But anyway, I won't tell you the history of the Indian independence movement, but it became more confrontational, shall we say. So he was one of the doyens of the Congress Party, and was vitally involved in negotiations with Lord Mountbatten and others, and was seen as relatively a hard man, quite no-nonsense, unsmiling, stern, and he was the Home Minister of India just after independence. However, unfortunately, he did not survive independence very long, dying in 1950, but he's recognised as being one of the founding fathers of the Indian Republic, which was proclaimed on the 26th of January 1950, shortly before his death.